All right, everybody, we are back. Thank you for joining us here today. I am Mr. Sound Off. Thank you for joining the Mr. Sound Off podcast here. I am doing my video today going on about our 2025 NFL preseason rankings for the 32 NFL teams. I'm going to jump right into things here. Got quite a bit to talk about as far as all these teams go. There's a lot of teams to go over, a lot of excitement, as you can hear. Here we got a lot of teams to, a lot of moving that can happen throughout the season. I think you're going to see it a whole lot. But without further ado, I want to get going with the actual rankings itself from Mr. Soundoff himself. We have starting out number 32 would be the New Orleans Saints. Number 31, the Cleveland Browns. 30, we got the Indianapolis Colts. 29, we have the Carolina Panthers. Then we got the Titans, Giants, Jets. 25 up there, we have the Dallas Cowboys playing tonight here. Las Vegas Raiders at 24, Miami Dolphins at 23, and rounding out that bottom 10 of the list is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, for me, I feel like I think a lot of people are actually sleeping on the Dallas Cowboys. I feel like with the addition of George Pickens that they got, as long as their offensive line can stay healthy and can actually do some run blocking for them, because they didn't really pick up that much on as far as running backs, but Javonte Williams can all of a sudden revert back to some previous Broncos days. Maybe they found something there. They're going to need that running game because they're going to need to chew up some clock sometimes. I do think that they can score with anybody as far as passing through the air, but I don't really think they're going to be able to stop very many people on defense, right? I know Jerry Jones is all about trying to get people to do run defense for him. I love me some Kenny Clark. So sad to see him leave the Green Bay Packers. I think he will be fantastic for the Dallas Cowboys this year. I think it will help them with that run defense. I don't think it's going to all of a sudden make them where they're like a top 5, top 10 run defensive team. And now all of a sudden you lost your best pass rusher. You've lost a lot of your linebackers, cornerbacks, those kind of things there. So I just think a lot of teams are going to be able to score on them a ton. It means they're going to be trying to score a lot themselves, but they're not going to ever be able to slow people down because they can't do it on defense and they can't do it running the ball either. So I do think they'll get a lot of victories this year, though, against a lot of good teams because they will be able to outscore some people for sure. Dolphins, don't sleep on them. And Jaguars, what year are we getting from Trevor Lawrence? Are we getting a playoff type year? Or are we getting, what we've kind of seen? And he's also been a little bit injury prone, those kind of things there. New York Giants also, I don't think they're going to be a great team this year, but I think they're rounding out. They get a quarterback or something like that, next year, or Jackson Dart turns into that guy. I think next season, 2026, will be a good one for them. Going on to the next set of 10. There you see we got Pittsburgh Steelers starting out at 21, Houston Texans at 20, New England Patriots at 19. You got the Cincinnati Bengals, Arizona Cardinals, Chicago Bears, Washington Commanders, Minnesota Vikings, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Seattle Seahawks. Interesting list. I already said that a couple of those teams on that last list I could see being in the playoffs. There's absolutely going to be some of these teams in the playoffs themselves. Now, again, for this list here, it's not necessarily this is what I think like the final standings results are going to be like in the NFL. These are more so what I think are those rankings, power rankings, just the best teams. I think there are teams that are going to be on here that are better than other teams, but maybe have a easier schedule. I think maybe depending on when you play somebody throughout the year, that can be a huge difference for you. You can get a win early on in the year, or maybe you get a loss later on playing that same team. But I do believe that some of these teams are going to maybe not necessarily sneak up on people. Example, I think the Chicago Bears are one of the more gifted rosters in all of the NFL. I don't necessarily think they're going to make the playoffs. But as far as just how good that roster should be, granted, a lot of it's going to be upon Caleb Williams and their new head coach coming over from Detroit. But they are stacked as far as like their offensive weapons on there. They were a great defensive team just, 2 years ago. They were fantastic on defense, good on defense last year as well. So, that team really, I could have possibly even put them in the top 10 as far as power rankings, just as far as their roster, how it's built itself. But I can't do it with a quarterback that had mediocre to poor season last year. Granted, he's just in his first year, but we'll see exactly how that goes with him. On the other hand, Pittsburgh Steelers, 21. I mean, I'm a big Aaron Rodgers fan. I think that he could all of a sudden recapture a little bit of it. I don't think that he actually had nearly as bad of a season last year as maybe some of the numbers, the clips, display. I think that he's had a bad rap last couple of years, going back to even his last year on the Green Bay Packers when he didn't make the playoffs. Was actually playing most of that season with a broken hand, a broken thumb on his throwing hand. Who else does that? Right? Still got them a win away from going to the playoffs themselves. So, I definitely see that could be a solid team as well. I don't think the Steelers, however, are as good on defense as they were last year. And I also think that, Aaron Rodgers going in there with a new offensive coordinator that, in my mind, has never really produced great numbers on any teams that he's been with. I would have loved for them to have DK Metcalf and George Pickens still, even though Pickens has his off-field, kind of issues and stuff like that. But that's why I think the Cowboys are going to be so good offensively, is because they got those two guys. If they still had him on there, then I would have the Pittsburgh Steelers a whole lot higher up and probably a playoff team. Minnesota Vikings, another one of those. That whole team is solid. One of the best teams in all of the NFL, but they got a rookie quarterback, really. I mean, second year, but he didn't play at all last year, so we're going to have to see how that goes there with them. I'm pretty high on the Arizona Cardinals this year. I think the teams like the Patriots also can be a good team. They put a lot of money into their whole roster. But again, second year quarterback with how's their coordinators going to exactly work with that? They brought over Stephon Diggs coming off an injury. I'm not sure he really has the tools, the weapons to really do a whole lot with. So we're going to see exactly how the Patriots can go throughout the season. Houston Texans, they've been pretty banged up. And now all of a sudden, throughout the offseason, the worst thing last year was their offensive line. They got rid of their best offensive lineman. Not really a big fan of that move, even though I think the defense will end up keeping them in some games. CJ Stroud, good quarterback, but if you're getting rushed just a ton, you have receivers missing. Joe Mixon's now out for, there's no telling exactly when he's going to be back, so I'm a little down on the Texans. Commanders, you see, I got them on there, 15th? I'm interested to see, one rookie year from a player doesn't really exactly do it for me. I think it happens more in baseball than it does in other sports, but baseball, there will be a rookie of the year every year. And of course, there's a rookie of the year, two rookies of the year. And how often do we see those rookies of the years get figured out by their second year? And all of a sudden, that sophomore slump. And I don't really necessarily think it's those players got worse or they didn't work out in the offseason or anything like that. I think, the rest of the NFL figured out, or sorry, in baseball terms, the rest of the baseball figured out those guys, figured out where to pitch them, the pitch sequences. They had more information on them, those kind of things there. So I just generally think that it's going to be a tougher season a lot of times for those quarterbacks in their second year. They have the oldest roster in the NFL as well, so those things kind of play into it as well. And then you look back at their season last year, quite a few, I wouldn't necessarily say lucky wins, but convenient wins, opportunities maybe the other teams didn't have, and a soft schedule. So I'm a little down on the Commanders myself. Kind of there with same thing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. As you'll see here, going forward, I have the Falcons will be on my list here at the top here. If you're wondering, the Buccaneers are so far down. A lot of people are really high on them. I like Baker Mayfield a ton, but also that team is getting a little bit older as well. Really solid team. I've always said I think they were the best put together team I've ever seen of all time when Tom Brady got there. Some of that was because of Tom Brady bringing people down there himself, but that team was solid all across the board. I mean, Pro Bowls, All Pros, Hall of Famers, almost at every level of that team for Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think it's still resonating with that team, from literally running backs, linebackers, defensive tackles, ends, wide receivers, tight ends. It was crazy what they had on that team if you go back and look at it. Some of that's remnants still there, but their offensive coordinator that really turned great things over for Baker Mayfield. did leave, all right? And I do believe that the Falcons were a very good team that played well below what their skill level was last season, and I think that's going to just be the difference there. I think they're going to take that leap forward. Los Angeles Rams, I would be higher on them, really, if I just believe that Matt Stafford was going to be fully healthy. He's had back issues all spring long, training camp long, I should say. And so, he's one of the older quarterbacks in the league. He's already going into the season with health concerns. So not exactly sure with the Rams on there. And they're also in a division, by the way. You see the Cardinals, I have them up there on that list, at 17, right? So the Cardinals, I feel like, are going to be a good, solid team. They could be a playoff team, but they're in the same division with the Seattle Seahawks that were in there last year. Going up there to Seattle is always a tough thing to do. I think that they might have gotten a little bit of an upgrade at quarterback. Not that Darnold is a fantastic quarterback, but Geno Smith has actually been one of the most turnover-prone quarterbacks in the NFL last couple seasons, and they have a really good, solid young defense on that team. And again, go up there to play in Seattle is always a nightmare for anybody. So, that's going to be a tough one. That's going to make it harder for the Rams. And more than anything, you'll see here going forward, I still have those 49ers. I think they're coming back. They have the easiest schedule in all of the NFL. So I think they're going to be winning that NFC West. But starting out, we have the Atlanta Falcons at 10. As I said there before, I thought they played below their skill level last year. I think they're going to have a big bounce back year this year. I think, you have a quarterback that came in his rookie year, and he wasn't, unlike Jaden Daniels, it wasn't starting out, so he kind of had to meld into that. I think this will be his full rookie year this year, but he also got to learn a little bit from it last year, and they got skill position guys all across the board. They have one of the best offensive lines, actually. It's not talked about in the NFL as far as players that have been drafted, first-round draft picks across that offensive line. Bijan Robinson, I know Kyle Pitts has always been a fantasy bust, but he's still one of the most skilled position tight ends out there. Drake London out there, Algier, and they just have a bunch of guys on offense. They went and got multiple guys on defense as well to shore up that. So I think they're going to be a much improved team, both from just their guys, stepping up, a year older. They're a very young team, and then new guys that are coming in, adding on to that team. So I think the Atlanta Falcons, and again, also you remember that in that division, you have the Panthers and the Saints in there. So both the Buccaneers and the Falcons are going to be able to feast on those teams there and get a whole bunch of wins. Number 9, you have the Denver Broncos. This one might be my most bullish pick out of teams that, a lot of people were talking about them just having an awesome, solid team all around them. Again, kind of like Jaden Daniels, they got that second-year player in there that had a very good, not nowhere near as a season as Jaden Daniels had, but I think their team is better than the Commanders are. I think their defense is better. I think they have a better offensive coordinator than the Commanders do. It's also tough to go play in Mile High Stadium over there in Denver, so I think they're going to have a good year as well. But I could definitely see that's probably one of my top teams that I could see dropping down some from there. As I said, the San Francisco 49ers, you have all these guys coming back, being healthy. I think Brock Purdy is severely underrated. I think he's actually a very good quarterback. It's really tough to be in that top 5, 8, 10 quarterbacks, but he's, is he 8 to 12? Is he somewhere in there? You put that in there with probably the most skilled offensive coordinator / head coach in the game, in Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, and all the weapons they have as well. A little worried about as far as some of their injuries they've had on wide receiver, but they have a bunch of those things there. Defense has been pretty solid. They were very young last year, and they also brought in Saleh back over to be defensive coordinator. So that, along with them having literally the weakest schedule in the whole NFL, means that they're going to get a lot of wins. They're going to be there. They're easily a playoff team for me. Past that, you have the Los Angeles Chargers. Never been a huge Harbaugh fan, but I recognize that he does turn over teams within the first 2-3 years, right? He's right on board there with him. They were a great defense last year. He curtailed Herbert Herbert back from throwing as much, but I think Herbert still got it. And they also hadn't brought in some more help for the running game. It's going to take some of that pressure off there. They brought Keenan Allen back. I think he's a little bit on the older side, but it's another familiar weapon for Herbert to pass the ball to. So I think they're going to be competing for that AFC West with the Kansas City Chiefs. And then you have my boys, the Green Bay Packers. Go Pack Go. They're at number 6. I already thought they were a top 10 team before they got Micah Parsons. I don't want to be too crazy and all of a sudden put them right at 1 with that. I do think they still have some other spots that would really make me more confident of having them at a higher spot if that was so. Cornerback being one. Jaden Reed, one of my favorite receivers they've had for years now. He has like a stress fracture that he's trying to play through. So he has that, and they're saying that he's going to try to play through it throughout the entire season, then probably get surgery done in the off season. That scares me a little bit. I would love to have Matthew Golden in there, coming in with Reed and Dobbs and Wicks and the other guys they already have, Tyler Kraft, Josh Jacobs. I think they have one of the more solid offensive lines in all football, a bunch of skill positions on offense. But what people don't talk about on that defense, Micah Parsons, of course, is going to be a game changer for them. But how much that's going to free up Rashawn Gary on the other side is going to be gigantic. But a lot of people will still sleep on Edgerrin Cooper. Everyone was talking about him last season. I've hardly heard anyone bring him up this year since this Micah Parsons trade. That's going to be a huge combination there with Edgerrin Cooper and Quay Walker, the linebacker position there for them. And I've been seeing nothing but Lucas Van Ness having a killer training camp as well. I think you could even bring him in to possibly a little bit of a spell the Kenny Clark leaving to Dallas position there. But I just think they're going to be solid. I don't think that the corners, the defensive backs are going to have to wait around as long as on an island because of that defensive front getting to people. And again, remember, they still have Xavier McKinney back there, Buller that they drafted in the first round second round last year. Their safeties are solid. So although the corners might not be exactly there, they have one of, if not the best safeties groups out there. Awesome linebackers. Now this awesome front defense. I think they're going to have a great season this year. Detroit Lions, speaking of having a great season, I think they're going to be right there again this year. I think that they'll miss Brad Johnson, time going over to Chicago, but I do think that Jared Goff is also one of those underrated guys as well. I think he's going to have a phenomenal year here. Maybe take a step back slightly from the offensive coordinator leaving, but still, I think they're going to be a very solid team. They got the position players again with Amon-Ra and Laporta on there. Gibbs at running back. I mean, they just got firepower everywhere on offense. Defense, they have Hutch coming back. They're going to be solid on defense. I don't think they're going to be fantastic on defense, but they're going to be good enough, especially to counterweight that awesome offense that they're going to have. Baltimore Ravens, that's a team that I'm a little iffy about, honestly. I mean, I could see me putting them, at 2 or 3. I could also see me putting them myself at like a 9 or 10. I think Lamar is awesome. I think every year they kind of underperform a little bit. It's going to be interesting to see how this team gels together. They got some new pieces that came in there. The Ravens are a great organization at putting these pieces together and having them come together throughout the year. But it's going to be the same thing pretty much every year until they get it done. What are you going to do in the postseason? Because they're almost for sure going to be there in the postseason again. Same thing with the Buffalo Bills. Both the Ravens and the Bills have just had the unfortunate mishap of being at the wrong place at the wrong time, going up against Patrick Mahomes and those Kansas City Chiefs, or Joe Burrow during his year as well. But I think the Bills are going to be even better than they were last year. And, going into the playoffs, I could see the Bills being that team that overtakes it and goes in there representing the AFC for this year over the Chiefs. Because, like I said, I think they were great last year, and I think they even got a little bit better this year. Kansas City Chiefs, a phenomenal team, though. Obviously a phenomenal team. I mean, a dynasty team, a team that, didn't play exactly the way they wanted to. in the Super Bowl. Didn't look good as far as their last game of the year, but I think that's only going to drive them further into this year. Everyone's talking about Travis Kelce is really devoted himself. Every year could be Travis Kelce's last year, but anytime you have a Hall of Fame player that still is playing at a high level, that is like, okay, I wasn't good enough last year or the year before, and I'm really going to devote myself this year into being even better. That's a scary thing to think about. Right? I think Pacheco's coming back. That's going to be a solid runner for him, above solid runner for him. I think last year he was a shell of himself coming back from his injury, and on defense they're going to be great too. So, until you kind of defeat these guys, I'm still going to put them up there at that number 2 spot. And the only team that's above them is the team that did defeat them, which would be the Philadelphia Eagles. And what a solid team they have. I mean, that is the most, I talk about some of these teams on here just being solid all the way throughout their roster. I think that the Eagles are that team. It'll be interesting this year because I think they lost, 5 starters off that defense from last year, but they were super deep as well. So, they have these guys coming in, and I think they're going to be a really solid team again. Probably the best offensive line in all football. They have the number 1 to maybe number 3. I would say probably the best running back in all football. One of the top wide receivers in all football. Jalen Hurts just knows what he's doing and running a team like captain should. So until you beat the Eagles, they're going to have to be up there as well. We'll see throughout the season. If they're starting to lose, multiple games, many games. With all these teams, any of these teams, that's why we get some of these teams to start dropping off these power rankings. It's not like the Eagles are going to be number 1 there all year long until they lose the Super Bowl or something like that, But if they lose one game, week 8 or something like that, week 10, it's not like one game is going to make me like, oh, now they're horrible. Now I'm going to drop them, that kind of thing there. So, anyways, keep coming back to the channel every week. See where these rankings go. See how I update them. Let me know your thoughts on the rankings themselves. Give me suggestions, your thoughts on this week, what you're looking forward to as far as this week's games, next week's games, those kind of things here. And thanks everybody for coming back to the channel. I'm Mr. Sound Off. You guys have a great rest of your day.